morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1 hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about. And this evening we're talking about what's important this date, October 24th, 2013. And my guest on the far side of the table over here is Ted Pyle, who's been on this show innumerable times because there are a few things we've not quite settled yet. And I enjoy him very much as a friend and as a guest on the show. And next to him is Michael Jarman, who I've known for some years at the health center, the fitness club. And finally this morning on impulse I said, "You've got to come on the show."
That's correct.
And he was vulnerable and he said, yeah, he would come. So how are you feeling, Ted?
Fine.
You're always feeling fine.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling great. Well, I'm grateful to be here. Yeah.
And you're not nervous?
I think as long as I watch your eyes and talk to you and both of you, I think I'll be okay. And just relax and enjoy the conversation.
I was impressed. I hadn't talked to you at any length in the club because we were working out. But in the few words we had this morning, I was impressed with your thinking process. And I think you may be leaning toward my end of the political continuum, but that doesn't matter. If a person is bright and they think and they try to be objective, and I can sense that, I want to have them as a guest, even if we disagree on most of the stuff we're talking about.
Yes.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And as you know, the show goes in two major segments. The first segment is about 30 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes a little more, where we talk about who you are personally, so the viewers get an idea of where you're coming from when you voice your views and opinions about what we'll be talking about. So let's do a kind of an abbreviated one on Ted, because there'll be some viewers who haven't seen you before. Let's start with you, so then you've got a model to see what we're doing here. And I have a trick question that I ask now and then, sometimes too, when you least expect it. So I got a spontaneous response. And then if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer it, of course. I try to check to see ahead of time whether I'm going to go into some waters that shouldn't go into. And when and where were you born, Ted?
Erlangen, Germany.
In Germany?
Yeah, Erlangen.
Are you a Nazi?
And my mother was, but I wasn't, no. I was born after the fact.
Okay, I forgot about the answer to that question. We're treading on touchy waters now already. Why were you born?
Biology. And the victor go the spoils.
Say that, the victory of what?
The victor go the spoils.
Yes, okay. Anything significant about your racial or cultural heritage that's worth sharing with the viewers?
Well, my father was black and my mother was a Nazi German who was prejudiced against Jews but had no prejudice against blacks. Because there were no blacks in Germany to be prejudiced against.
How about your own personal prejudices? Do you have any of those?
Oh yeah. Prejudice comes natural.
Mm-hmm. Is it more natural for you than for other people?
Well, having been tossed around on both sides of the issue, I have a different perspective on it. And having been born light, I spent many years with very racist people not knowing what I was, so I infiltrated the other side, so to speak.
Which side do you prefer being on today?
Well, I'm most used to being amongst white people, because that's what I've been most of my life.
Sell out.
Sell out.
Yeah. Any religious preference?
No.
Did you have one before?
Well, I was born Catholic, of course, German, and then Baptist here. But
And your formal education?
I just went to college about 3 years, quit. Went working on cars myself.
Why'd you quit college?
Mostly, I got so successful at working on things and making money, I didn't see a need for it. This was back in the 70s.
You do all sorts of stuff, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, So what do you do in your work life nowadays?
Well, I fix other people's stuff.
And you fix some stuff for me too.
Yeah, I fix cars, I fix houses, plumbing, electrical, sheetrock.
Do you fix
I even haul people's garbage off if I like them.
And you enjoy that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you fix broken hearts?
No, that's an area that I'm not.
That's my job.
Yeah, that's your job.
I'm a clinical psychologist, as you know. Partner, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, any of the above?
Well, I'm in between, in transition.
I'm not going to go any further with that one. Children, grandchildren.
Yeah, I have one daughter and a grandchild. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And where are they in the country?
I don't know where my daughter's at. She's run off and abandoned me. And my grandson is in Salt Lake City and being indoctrinated by the Mormons at this point in time.
You're spreading all over the map, huh?
Well, it's not my choice. It's the mother's, but yeah.
How old is the boy?
5.
Uh-huh. Do you see him from time to time?
From time to time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does he like you?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Your political persuasion, or you're the left, right, or center, or where are you?
I'm definitely progressive and most interested in equality.
Why are you so interested in equality?
I don't know. I was born poor and identified with the poor, and I had periods of success where I made a lot of money, but I still identified with the poor. And then over the years, in divorces, I managed to lose most of the money, but I still kept my allegiance to the poor.
Mm-hmm. And your day-to-day activities pretty much are involved in what, other than the work that you do, being knowing everything and fixing a lot of things? What else do you do?
I attend all kinds of events, like the event, the teachers strike in Portland, and union stuff. There's lots of causes, lots of events. I could be 24/7 doing it. I work, earn enough money to afford to do my political stuff.
And you're one of the key figures in the Occupy movement?
Well, I belong to the Solution Committee of the Occupy movement, and I belong with Jobs of Justice. And I've been kicked out of all the other parties because I won't adhere to anybody's dogma.
I just wanted to be sure you were on Homeland Security's list.
Oh,
You're
definitely.
the Occupy movement, yeah.
Yeah.
Any memberships in political, social, or civic organizations worth mentioning other than the ones you mentioned so far?
No.
You enjoy working with the Occupy people?
I enjoy getting to meet. There's a lot of really interesting people in this.
I bet.
Huge array. They're all disconnected, and they all don't know what other people are doing. And I try to connect them together and get them to work together. But it's surprising how many people are doing the same thing in the same town and don't even know about it. And so I come along and tell them, there's other people doing videos, there's other people doing this, there's other people, have the same interests. But hopefully they'll all coalesce eventually.
Is the Occupy movement's influence diminishing as time goes by?
Yeah, it's they say it doesn't have a direction. It's just that I'd say it doesn't have a crisis at the moment. It needs another crisis, and it's coming.
Okay. Persons from the past or alive today that you particularly looked up to or admired. Any names come to mind for you other than me?
Okay. Oh yeah, lots of people. People that had the nerve to challenge the system.
Give me a couple names.
Joan Baez.
Oh.
That woman had some gonads on her. She was a white woman running around with black people in the South. That was so dangerous, and she had no reason to do it. Didn't need it, but she did it.
Yeah. So you admire her.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, there's a lot of people. A lot of people I admire, even currently living.
Okay.
Yeah.
Name one currently living.
I like Marty. Teaches economics at Lewis and Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of people trying to do good things. They haven't gotten it together. The time isn't right.
Okay. Shall we leave you and go over here to our new guest and pick him apart? And what's your phone name, Michael?
William Michael Jarman.
William Michael Jarman. That name is interesting. I'm trying to figure out what nation that came from with those names. Jarman, is that German?
No, the roots of our genealogy is from England. Two boys, as my father would say, came out of England. Hugh George Jarman and John Plaskett Jarman in the 1870s. And they settled in Santa Clara. One was affluent, one was a painter.
Fine arts painter?
No, house painter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And my father was named after John Plaskett Jarman. And then I'm the son of, obviously, my father. We have two brothers and a half-sister from my dad, out of Oakland, California area.
Uh-huh. And when was that? When were you born?
I was born in 1956. Grew up in the 60s and the 70s in the Oakland Bay area.
Oh, the left coast, huh?
I think I saw a lot of things as a kid. We used to go over to Berkeley and hang out on Shattuck Avenue. We'd go over to San Francisco and hang out by the pier and do a lot of things. I think growing up in the Bay Area in that time was pretty eye-opening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time, I think.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Why were you born?
You know, that's a very interesting question, because before I came here, I looked on your website, and you asked that question to somebody.
Yes.
You know, and here's a weird answer to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was born to do all the things that I've done to this point in my life. All the impact of the integration of touching people's lives and helping people, all my children and my wife, and the integration with my people, the progenitors. And then I thought about this, which is kind of a cool statement. I was born to do all the things that I have to do in the future. All the things from 56 up to the time that I die. And I don't know what those things are. So I can say I was born for a purpose in life, and I've fulfilled much of that purpose, and I would look to fulfill that purpose going forward. Does that make sense? So the part going forward, I don't know exactly why I was born. I have to go create that.
I've never heard an answer like that before.
I just
I'm
thought
curious
about that.
about what my respected friend Ted has to say with your answer. Will you say something about it?
Existential.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's existential or not. It's just my thinking. That's what came to my mind today as I thought about your question, because it's a very interesting question.
Of course.
You don't ask where were you born, or you ask why. It's a very different question.
Yes.
But I do believe that. I believe that our lives are integrated with all people, all human people. We all have the same rootstock. And so the integration of our lives is the past, and the why going forward we create. That's my best answer for that. I give today, it came in my mind.
I'm sure I'll think about it again. It'll cross my mind. I've never heard an answer like that. I'm repeating myself again, and it's interesting. Because I've reduced that answer, I've heard it so many times from different people, to I was born to be kind, friendly, and charitable, which is my philosophy.
I believe in that.
And to live in the moment and get out of my own way and experience the joy of simply being.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still is not quite what you were saying, and I'm going to be dwelling on that some more. Thank you.
That's good.
Religious preference, is that a fair question?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because oddly enough, I'm a member of the Mormon faith, an LDS faith, and as you talked about your grandson being over in Salt Lake City, I would hope that would not be the case, that there would be people indoctrinating him in that way. I know people would perceive me in a certain way coming from that faith, and in a little bit I'm an odd duck out on that faith. I'm a little out of my, I think maybe a little differently, maybe than what people perceived. But I'd reach across the chair here and I would go, I hope that would not be the case. That if your son or grandson was in the proximity in Salt Lake City, that they would have all the freedoms in life to choose their own path in life. So that's my religious element. And but our background, we joined the LDS faith when I was around 13. So none of my progenitors were at all. And all the elements of my dad mentoring me and grandparents and things going back have no background in that at all. Yeah.
And you have brothers and sisters?
I have a brother who's not of the faith and a sister who's also not of that faith. Yeah.
And your parents weren't of that faith?
My mother died of overdose of drugs at 40 when I was around 12. And so she, I think she just had a normal faith, you know. And my dad just lived a normal faith up to the point that he adopted the LDS faith. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That might be a little different for many of your viewers, but I don't really care. I'm good.
That's what makes you so darn interesting.
Yeah.
And your formal education?
I have an undergraduate in business and a master's degree in business from Oregon State.
So what do you do to earn a living and earn your keep nowadays?
I've been involved in, I started in mortgage lending around 1992, and I own my own company. And I recently returned to two of the larger banks. Not last Friday, but the Friday before I was let go by Wells Fargo, so I'm unemployed currently. And I'm resting and thinking and pondering about what I want to do going forward. So there's some things in my profession that don't gel with my values in some ways. Okay, so I have to figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. I have a category called other education. You have some other education that you can share with us if you wish.
I'm self-educated. If you looked in my little room off of our bedroom, it'd be filled with books. I read, if I could, if I didn't have so many kids, I have 6 kids, I'd prolifically read. And I would like to read, and so there's just books all over that I've read, all kinds of books.
You know what that means? I feel the same way when I read in my head,
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite authors? A few names that come to mind. For me, it's Howard Zinn and Chris Hedges and a few leftist characters like that.
That's a tough question because a lot of my books, they're all across the board, and I looked at my books before I came here. The most recent book I read was a book by about Lincoln, and it was the preface for the book for the movie about Lincoln. That was an incredible book. That was well documented. I read that book. I've read books that might be more leftist leaning. A good book that comes to mind is The Creature from Jekyll Island, about the Federal Reserve and the creation of it in 1913, how they came together off the East Coast and created the Federal Reserve Board. It's a very well documented book. I've read books about Think and Grow Rich and books by Og Mandino, and books that for the mind to help your mind. Dale Carnegie books. A lot of different books all across the spectrum.
And any prospects? You're still figuring out what you're going to be doing from now on since you left Wells Fargo.
My wife and I became health coaches for a company called Take Shape for Life, and it goes in with my gel of helping people be healthy.
Yeah, can I touch you? Look at that. You're looking good.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It's what I believe in is living healthily so you can be an impact person and a legacy to help other people. And your stewardship over your health is key, so you have that capacity to help and bless the lives of other people. So that's why I exercise a lot. I still have 2 kids to raise. And this gels with my life as to what I would like to do as like a life pursuit. But I would have to do that entrepreneurially and grow it. So that's the only other option I have.
Do you ever smoke or drink?
I've never smoked because my parents all smoked and my grandmother smoked growing up, and in cars with closed windows in the 60s. About killed me. Yeah.
And I was smoking then too.
Yeah, well, it's different now, and I only drank maybe my senior year in high school when I went away a little bit from the LDS faith. But other than that, no, I've never drank or smoked at all. No, I don't. I don't believe in drinking because of my mom's alcoholism.
Of course.
And then the smoking just was alien to me because I didn't see the benefit of it logically.
Talk about your kids for a minute. You said there are 6?
Yeah, I bought a picture of them.
Will you show my viewers?
Could I show it?
Oh, please.
Because I know you asked that question about who you are, and I thought a picture would tell 1,000 words, and I brought this picture. Can I show this, hold this up?
Oh, yes.
Where do I point this here?
That middle camera there.
All right, so this is a picture of our family. We have 6 children, age 30 currently.
See?
There it is.
And see. Look
Yeah.
at that.
And it makes me emotional.
That's wonderful. Beautiful.
Yeah, we have 6 kids, and
I can tell you don't like them. Wonderful.
And the picture was with my father, who passed away in 2008, who had a great impact on my life, who was a World War II vet.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's why I brought that picture, even though it's dated, it has my dad in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A very powerful picture for me, symbolically.
You betcha. And you're so emotionally literate. You have permission to feel. Wonderful. Pardon me, I slipped my psychologist's hat on.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah,
I
that's
like to
great.
see someone who wears their feelings honestly and openly. I'm that way. I can cry at the drop of a hat. In the movie, that's very moving, and I'm crying, and my wife is sitting there, and she feels, but not like me.
Yeah.
And it embarrasses me. I'm the big muscular husband, and I'm crying, and she's just, what's going on?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
digressing. Your political persuasion. You left, right, or center. Would you characterize yourself on the continuum or not?
That's really interesting because I was talking to you about that, before we started. I'm registered independent, and because I never really affiliated with 100% Republican, which I can affiliate with. Obviously, people would typecast me as an LDS person as being Republican,
Sure.
and yet on the progressive side, I can see a lot of things in society that I see the need for opportunities for young people, and the difference dispersion between wealth held in the United States between the top 1%. So I have an odd political viewpoint. I just have
independent political view.
Yeah, so I can see both sides. That's maybe wishy-washy a little bit, but honestly I can see both sides. I like conversations.
I think for me there's a third side, if I may. Because the 2 sides that are portrayed for us now by the media are not really sides. They're both branches of the same ruling elite, the super rich. And there should be some place for the rest of us out there. So we need another party that represents us in the real world. So my soapbox again.
Can I comment on that?
Oh, please do.
Okay, so maybe why I'm here tonight, because I'm nobody really, is you walked in with your sign on your chest. And for me, if I could key off of that one statement, what that sign said to me is, here's a person who's unafraid as a human being to share their thoughts and to walk openly and to put them out there. And that's where I resonate with you. I believe in this aspect of integrating with people and humankind, and I think this is so powerful because it states what you believe, and it's unafraid. And I think that is what we need to do as human beings. We can't be submissive, and we cannot not talk about things, and we cannot share our emotions, as you said, but also our political feelings. We need to stand up and tell people, even though, like we had in our conversation with the other young man today, if there might be some fallout as a result of it. That's what our nation was built on. That's what my dad fought for in World War II. You take a risk and you stand out and you tell people your thoughts and your feelings, and you advocate for them passionately, even though they may not be the same as what other people have. I'll get off my bandwagon now.
No, you.
But that right there stands
Okay,
out,
here's
and
the
that's why
sign
I
he was
picked you
talking
up.
about. Never mind, Rick, don't go bananas in there. My guy who handles the cameras doesn't like my leftist leanings, but I love you, Rick. We've been together for many, many years.
I believe in that,
Yeah.
to share your thoughts and stand out as a human being.
Because years ago, if there weren't a few people who took a risk and stuck their neck out, and some of them were even killed for it, but I'm a long ways from that, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been that way. I tell people, my wife says, how come you're always getting in trouble? I says, because I'm born to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Injustice, I will not tolerate that. It's just in my genes for some reason or other. My turn in the soapbox. So let's continue on. We only have a couple minutes left before we go into the main body of the show. Memberships in political, social, civic organizations, any of those come to mind for you now?
No.
Persons from the past that you liked or admired, other than your dad from World War II?
Nelson Mandela is a good one. I spent some time in South Africa during the apartheid time. I saw all the injustices in South Africa at that time. And Nelson Mandela was down on Robben Island in the south part of the Cape,
Yes.
imprisoned. And so it was neat to watch how that flowed out. And the nation of South Africa moved to a more equal state without apartheid. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Nelson Mandela, if I thought of one, I'd say probably him. Any others, maybe, but that's what comes to my mind from that experience.
Oh, what a soul, a spirit, an inner happening that you've got. Yes. Can you make me smile? See, you just did. You're good.
I can make you smile because I was at the dentist and half of my face is still numbed up, so we can laugh at that. How's that sound? Make fun of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we take a break, Mr. E, Mr. Director, Ellery, our director? We'll be off camera for a few minutes. Okay, we are back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my two guests tonight, Ted Powell and Michael Jarman. I've been delighted with what's happened this first half of the show, and I'm sure my viewers will appreciate very much this particular show. And a lot of it is because of how you are and your uniqueness. And I don't polish the apple too hard. I don't blow smoke. You're a delight. Okay, now the main part of the show is what's important on this date. And what's important for us to talk about? Who will offer something to discuss first? Ted or Michael?
I'll defer to Ted. He has much more deeper background and
Well, I'll bounce the ball back
okay.
on you. And I noticed in your conversation that you were in banking, that you're not happy with what banking does and did. And I've brought up that law and banking and a lot of educated stuff doesn't teach people to think about what they're doing and write the script. It just teaches them initially how to do what's already been accepted. And they don't encourage you to think about, well, what's the impact of banking and what's the impact of the economy? Just how do I do my job and crank it out without even thinking about the consequences of it? So it brought to mind whether you're afraid that you might be able to get back into banking, or that you're going to have to do a business thing yourself in order to bring your future out?
That's a deep, tough question, actually. It's kind of like one you'd ask me.
See, that's why I like him. He's dangerous.
Yeah.
Probing questions, inviting me to think.
So let me answer that with a story, but let me try to be concise, because I can be sometimes over verbal. Through the 20 years that I was in mortgage lending, one time I had my own company, and a friend came to me and said, Mike, I've been out of business, and I put I lived on my credit cards. I want to refinance that into my home mortgage. And at one time that was acceptable. It was promoted. And over time, my thing is, I was going to square peg in a round hole in banking, because my thing is, my values is to serve the people, and I do that with the key on the keyboard of banking. So if there was a place where I wasn't able to serve the people in banking, then I would conflict with my values. So what I told my friend is, I said, I can't do that loan for you, even though it would bring income to my family. And we were driving, and he got miffed at me, and he said, what do you mean you can't do that? I said, I don't believe in that anymore. I can't do those loans where you're going to refinance your debt onto your mortgage, because you could lose your home. It would impact your children. And he went around me and did it anyway. And his rates and things, and eventually it's not a negative story or casting negativity, but he lost his home. Okay? So for me, when I'm in banking, I have a challenge in being in a large organization and having to meet those goals. In some cases, I see some things in banking that bother me. Okay? So currently in the banking element, mortgage lending, they're starting to open up the windows so people can buy homes again with very low down. And I see that as problematic, because buying a home and stuff could be an injurious thing to some people. And on the same type of coin, it can be a great blessing to raise a family in a home. So that's my current enigma or difficulty in coming back to banking in a way.
There's something called social responsibility. I have starts playing inside of you as you're talking about this work that you've been doing and what you plan to do from this day forward, or what you're anticipating doing, probably working underneath. My hunch is you have a strong sense of social responsibility. Did that make sense?
I believe, according to the way I was raised by my dad, is that you never do anything injurious to anybody. And you would only do those things that would better the families and the people in the aspect of what you're doing.
No wonder you looked up to him.
Yeah, my dad taught us good values and stuff. And this other aspect that we talked about of creating your life going forward, I don't know if I can create my life for the next number of years going forward, as you said, just fulfilling the structured role within that corporate entity, if that makes sense. Do you see that?
Yeah, right. Being able to go back and question the whole overview of what you're doing, what it's accomplishing, and what its impact is.
Right.
Yeah.
And the aspect of, bigger picture, the nation going in debt, with the amount of debt that one of your prior people, Mr. Meek, talked about.
Dan Meek.
That's correct. I see that as concern to create problems for us as a nation. And so when you put people in debt, when you buy a home, you're putting them into a form of debt. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. You see that? You can see how that conflicts in a way. Yeah. So
well, the whole thing of making real estate an investment, and then making it speculative, and then making it a source of generating wealth without value. An example, I learned this a long time ago from a fascist friend of mine, Nazi friend of mine, who told me that one of the things that Hitler did when he came to power was he froze the selling of real estate for any more money than what you paid for it. So if a lot was worth 4,000 marks, you couldn't sell it for 10. You had to sell it for 4, and they had a board and a committee. If you did improvements, you could show your improvements, and they would adjust it up. Because he realized, and this was his idea, but he's the economist, was that if you make speculation out of real estate, a lot of money is made, but nothing's created. So when houses go from 100,000 to 200,000, now all of a sudden rents and mortgages have to follow. Now you have to pay more wages and benefits, and you squeeze people. And somebody got rich, but he didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. He just owned 10 houses, mm-hmm. and he just rose to $1 million. So he realized that the long-range effect of allowing speculation and marketing things to go on its own is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And I think we've kind of learned that here.
So how does that apply? How does that apply today when we look at what's important to discuss today? What we've been talking about so far?
That the economy is a man-made device, that it is engineered to do the things that it does, and that if it's doing something wrong or bad, you undo it. You make the necessary adjustments. Where the big misunderstanding that people have is they think the economy is like the weather. It has its ups and its downs, and who can you blame? Well, there is somebody you can blame, unless it is the weather. So it's that lack of understanding that keeps us from seeing solutions to our problems. Like, wiser people knew, mortgaging your house in order to make money for school or spending is not a good idea. It makes you insecure. But we all got sold on that program, and then the bubble.
So I still hear us not talking about what's going on in our country today. We were still talking about generalities in terms of economy and like that. Yes.
So currently, the Federal Reserve is buying $85 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds every month. And as was stated on your prior show, they basically artificially create that money, okay? And the challenge is the Federal Reserve has also dropped the price or the rate of interest similar to the country of Japan. So the money, the interest rate on the money is so cheap that it encourages people to go into debt, okay?
Yeah.
But it does not, if I were to come over on his side of the program, this is very concerning today because it doesn't create any wealth for the common person. It doesn't create wealth at the middle class America that is deeply struggling, and it is getting, there is a gap between those people that are very rich and those people that are poor or struggling. So that's deeply concerning to me as a father of 6 children and my first grandchild, because I see what my children will go, and I no longer think most narcissistically about me, but I think about my children and what I can do to prepare for my children. And it creates speculation. So the stock market is artificially inflated today by what? By the Federal Reserve that is spending $85 billion. Eventually that'll come home to roost. It's not creating anything. So I would turn that over to you and let you comment on that, see what you think about that.
Okay, well, I have a definite opinion on it, yes. And there's a professor that was on RSA I was watching the other day that explained it fairly good. He said, because he observed what happened to the Japanese, and he brought out 2 or 3 points that are really obvious facts. The world is awash with capital. Interest rates are artificially low, yet there is no growth and stimulation, and unemployment remains flat. They're all sitting around saying, well, what's the problem? Before it was a lack of money and a lack of this, and then what he comes up with is what we're missing is what he called empowering innovation, new ideas, new products to invest them in.
Well, how do we get those?
Well, these are things.
Empowering. How do we do that?
Oh, empowering innovation like the computers, automobiles, mass production. All those are like out in the field of.
Give me some specifics.
Of what?
Empowering
innovation. A personal computer. It costs $2 million. They reduced down to where you can get one for $200. Now everybody's getting them. They're worldwide produced. It's a win-win situation for everyone. The businessman makes money. The public gets a better product. Everyone's happy. That's empowering innovation. There's a lack of it. And then he pointed out, he said, during the last 20 years, the Japanese have went flat. But then what if the Japanese
How do we get more of it? There's a lack of it. How do we get more of it? I'm looking for solutions.
Genius, someone inventing a way to make, oil out of water and steel out of dirt. would be an empowering innovation. It doesn't. We don't have a direct control of that aspect of our. We can do research and development, but the financial community has went away from that. They prefer to make money on speculation, on manipulation, and artificial. Okay, so what the crisis is that there is too much money chasing too few good opportunities. See what I'm saying? And this is what you're noticing. You're saying they're propping up the economy. They're artificially keeping interest rates low, but that there's no growth and no employment. Why?
Who are the they you're talking about that are doing this?
Pardon? The investment
You said
community.
they 3 times.
The investment community. The
Okay.
financial community.
Mhm.
They're swimming in money. They don't know where to put it.
What do we need to do about them having swimming in money?
Well, the problem is they're swimming in money, and they're not interested in creating industry and infrastructure.
How
and
do we
solid
get them to
things.
do that?
Well, the way the Germans have done it, they tax automation, they tax globalization, and then they
Do
pay
we need
for.
to tax them?
Yes, we do.
Oh, how do we do that?
Well, return back to where the tax structure was in the 1960s.
Okay,
Isn't that the
now we're
revolutionary?
approaching some solutions instead of the ain't it awful we've been engaged in the past 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
I'm looking for answers, solutions.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, we'll go away from this and go, that was an interesting conversation, but what's the end result?
Well,
What do we do to change things around so that the wealth distribution doesn't continue going in the direction that it's going?
look at the countries that are successful at it. Germany. Now, if you remember in Dr. Reich's presentation about the iPod and who got the money for the iPods, the Germany got 36%. But I think the rest of the story is what the Germans did with their 36. Now, we only got 6% of that, and the Chinese only got 3% of it. But I think the key thing is that the 36% that the Germans got, they will reinvest it in re-education and new technology and new ideas. When we get money, the rich get it, and then they go out and look for a way to make more with it.
Why do the rich get it? How do the rich get it?
Property rights, stocks, options, they have all kinds of financial ways of getting it.
What do we need to do about that?
Bring some of it back into the center.
How do we do that?
Taxation.
Mm-hmm.
You tax automation, you tax globalization, and then you bring that money back and build infrastructure.
How do we do that?
The reverse of the process that we've been doing for the last about 30 years. We've been letting businesses off of taxes.
Does this have anything to do with the Congress and what it's doing and governing and managing our system?
Well, that's what Mr. Reich's presentation was. He said during the last 30 years, they have gotten the government to make laws favorable to them in every aspect, banking, tax policy, everything. They've undone it all in their favor. So if
What do we
want
do
it
about
back,
that?
To do the reverse.
What do we do?
Increase the taxation and get the money back.
How do we do that? And then I'm going to get off this horse.
How do we do that?
You know what I'm heading toward?
we-
The people who govern us, the representatives in Washington, the Senate and the House, they don't represent us.
That's right.
You got to start with campaign reform.
Campaign contribution.
We got to reverse
Get the
Citizens
corporations
United.
out of running well, his thing. The corporations figured out the way to make wealth is to control the laws and the rules of the economy and put them favorable to you. And his message was, that's what they did for 30 years, and they've accomplished it. Do the reverse. Undo it. Do the same thing, the reverse process. Increase taxation, increase their responsibility. Don't allow them to get away with going to foreign countries to get out of taxation and all the other little tricks that they've done, and bring that money back into the country and put it into infrastructure and to education and things that will give it's what I call the secondary impact of wealth. The first impact is how they got it. The second one is once they have it, they want more from it, and they don't care how they get it. Now, if they invested in dams or in infrastructure and something other people could benefit from, but they get hooked into scams.
I'm going to stop this now
Okay.
because it's them and they,
they-
and you keep running away from, in my opinion, what we can do. You and I are citizens.
What we can do is
Let's get Malcolm back into the picture here. I've never gone on this long with you, back and forth, but this is going too long to stop.
Okay.
Do you have a question, or do you want?
Any impressions or thoughts or comments about what's been going on between my friend and I here?
Well, you held him accountable and continued to ask him for specifics.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said to me when I when I came in, and we talked, as you said, Mike, we talked about the early 60s and how suffrage came up with civil rights, and he said, Mike, the thing that drove that were the facts, right? Mm-hmm. And the facts were in the South, people were deeply discriminated against, and the facts drove up to the legislation and the qualitative element of people rising up in the streets and taking control, okay? Mm-hmm. So here's my dilemma. The facts are what they are today, and the challenge is how do you change those facts? That's $1 million question. As I was listening to you, I disagree in some aspects because I believe in the entrepreneurial aspect of creativity, of people creating new ventures. As I watch my children and grandchildren, or foresee my grandchildren growing up, my kids are up to date on Google and the social media and Facebook, and it's all revolutionizing and changing. These were all done by entrepreneurs and people starting things out of a vision, many times inside of a dorm, and they created it. Whether or not that creates wealth, I don't know yet, but it's the creation of that human spirit of visualizing something and then creating it, and ideally that would be for the betterment of people. Do you see what I'm saying? And not corporate elitists to suffrage people or to hold them down or put them inside of a box. So I believe in that. I believe in the human spirit, that I believe in faith, that even though we have these problems, I believe that they can be overcome because of people's faith. Why would you be here tonight at your age doing this if you didn't believe in the human spirit, and that we could work eventually together, that the Congress will either get kicked out on their butts or they'll learn to work together? But I believe we have to talk about it. And I have faith in mankind that we can overcome things. Do you want to hold me accountable for that?
You hold me accountable for what I said.
Yeah.
I hear, my opinion is that we're talking about this and that, and those are critically important in considering our plight as a society, as a culture, and as human beings looking for enjoyment in life and enjoying our existence. And yes, innovation and those sorts of things. And all we got to do first is look at what's happening now and why it's happening, and fix that such that we can, instead of having new ventures and all kinds of new creations, we can see that the pie is split more evenly with the existing system. A piece I read recently where the question is, are we interested in a reform or revolution? A system as corrupt as monopoly capitalism is not reformable, because they, and you know who I'm talking about, are in charge, and they will not allow a reform to take away their power and their ability to gather more wealth and more power at our expense. So a revolution, and I'm not going to encourage or say that we should have a revolution. I'm saying I'm going to watch it happen. It's always happened. Empires have crumbled. And unless we have a revolutionary approach to how we govern ourselves, perhaps a parliamentary system, or re-examine the Constitution, then we'll still be heading in the same direction, and your grandchildren and my great-grandchildren will still keep going down the tubes. And then we'll have another sequester, and then austerity, and so on.
And that creates suffrage on people's backs, on the common person's backs.
So there's something we can do now instead of talking about philosophy and approach in all sorts of ways to reform the system and have new innovative ideas and release our creativity. That's wonderful. But all we got to do is look at what's really going on now and directly the reason for our situation right now and attack that head on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few minutes left. Maybe we can talk about something else going on, like Obamacare, or drone warfare, or anything else you want to talk about?
Drone warfare scares me. I don't like the fact that they would turn drones on our own citizens and have that technological capacity to utilize it on the citizens of the United States. That's my feeling on that.
I think we make a mistake in thinking about the citizens of the United States. In the broadest concept, a conceptualization, citizens of the United States, by and large, are the unimportant human beings on the earth. And when America has exploited as much as it can from the rest of the globe, the human beings in other countries and other societies and cultures, then it will turn and get the same sort of slavery, economic slavery, from its own citizens. It's a war that's global. We can forget about, in this context, forget about national boundaries and nations. So in our country, in our society, we have to change ours and have a model for the rest of the world to follow, and rather than the model that we're showing them on how to handle society and culture.
Well, they're starting to have the debate about the drone killings are murder, and whether or not the innocent civilians that are killed by drones can file suit against the country that sent it for the death of the innocent people that are involved. So they're shaky. They're shaky on the legal basis. But of course, my position is I'd like to see international law be the only authority capable of making the decision, rather than Americans or Russians or Chinese. So if there's genocide and something needs to be done, I want the international court to have the authority, not the Americans or any one country.
And my government will have an exception, should not have to obey this new agreement by other countries in the world. So, and you, okay, I'm the one who's going to bring up the topics here. We've got about 2.5 minutes left. Anything else we can talk about or shoot at? Any thoughts about Obamacare, Medicare for all, or the state of health care for Americans as compared to the health care for citizens of other countries?
Would you say that the resistance against Obamacare is nearly at the stage of mutiny, and the law's been passed. It should be given an opportunity to be exercised and made adjustments if it has problems. The idea that the Congress is so reckless that the passing of a law doesn't make it a law and that the fight doesn't end ever is a threat to democracy.
And on top of that, I'm sure you've got Tea Party advocates working in the background to add to the problems of working out this brand new system, which will probably take a couple years to smooth out to any serious degree.
Isn't the problem that the bill was passed without people fully reading the bill? And if we were to be a republic, aren't our people who we have in Congress supposed to be making decisions for us? How can they make decisions and pass that bill without having read it? And now the outcome is we have what we get and it's rolling out. I think the common American person would have concerns over that. They don't know. And if you go back to the roots, you have to ask the question, why would you pass a law that has such profound impact, good, hopefully, and bad, without fully reading it? And if there are deep corporate insurance people that were drafting it, was it for the betterment of the United States people, or was it for the betterment of the insurance companies? And that, as that rolls out, is a little scary for most, I think, people.
I don't know as we can come to any conclusions on that one, but we need to stop now so we can say goodnight. We've run out of time. And I want to say thank you to my wonderful crew, and for Paul Wade for coming in and helping out tonight. And public service announcements, let's read a few of them. To get my show, local broadcast schedule, go to my website, www.donbaham.com and click on present day activities. Another PSA to watch my shows on the web. donbaham.com and click on favorite links. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. I've got a few friends who are angry with the ACLU and what it's been doing recently, but I've been a member of the ACLU for 40 or more years, and I think it's the greatest protection we have for our civil liberties anymore. Without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be completely down the tubes. And get my shows broadcast by other stations. While you're watching this show, ask your local public access station to go to pegmedia.org and follow the instructions there on how to have my shows broadcast from that local venue. And we got to end corporate personhood to take our country back. Go to movetoamend.org and see how we can amend the Constitution to have our voices be heard. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed interviewing our guest, particularly Michael, who is new for this whole operation here. And remember, KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. To you too. You too. You too. Thanks again for watching.